Cars Keys is brought to you by TixBlitz.com. TixBlitz.com. No service fees. The price you see is the price you pay, plus shipping. TixBlitz.com. Every ticket, every venue, everywhere.
What's going on, Bears fans? It's Cars here for this week's review of the Packer game. And like most of you, I've had one hell of a week enjoying this. This has been a long time coming. You know, I've felt we haven't been really this good in a long while. And I look back even in that 2010 season. It was when we were really on our last legs in the Lovie Smith era. I know we came back 2 years later and went 10-6 and missed the playoffs, but nothing ever felt easy. Nothing ever felt good. Nothing ever felt like we were quite ascending the way that we are today. And I enjoyed it. I have two really close friends that are Packers fans. They did not return my texts or calls for over 24 hours, and this is really unusual for them because they've really enjoyed this run from Favre to Rodgers and beating us a lot more and always being confident that the division could be theirs because they have Aaron Rodgers, and they're all admitting that they've got to deal with his own mortality now and wondering if years and years of hits are starting to really pile up because he was feeling such ghost presence. And so when they finally responded, it was thoroughly enjoyable, and I will take that. You know, I'm of the belief that we've been struggling for way longer. You know, I know we made the playoffs in 2010. I know that we came close in 2012, but realistically, we haven't been this good since 2006, right? Since our Super Bowl run. And while that season had some more memorable victories and more memorable plays, I'll never forget the Arizona Cardinals game. This defense feels significantly more dominant.
Rodgers on 3rd and 10. He is smothered.
This offense certainly feels better, but that is probably the world's tallest midget kind of competition. But this is fun. And as Bears fans, we should enjoy it. You know, unfairly, we get a lot of comparisons to the Jacksonville Jaguars last year and how, you know, 1 year later that they're so much worse. And, you know, we all know that certain dumb pundits have called Mitch Trubisky the Blake Bortles of the NFC North. But, you know, all that's happened for that Jacksonville defense from last year to this is I believe their DVOA went from 1st to 7th, so a 6-place drop, and that team can't even sniff the playoffs. Now the good news is I think that we have some improvements to come on the offense, but that's to be saved for a later date. Let's talk about this game. You know, for me, even with Aaron back there, and you never feel completely comfortable because we've all seen him make the plays, make the throws, come back to bite us. There's just, for lack of a better term, a ghost that has been here every time we've got the lead in the fourth quarter. If I went back and watched this game without my Bear fan blinders on, this was a game that wasn't really ever out of grasp. The Bears controlled the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And you really have to give props to the offensive line, who really did a good job.
Cohen gets the first down with room. Tariq Cohen inside the 30 of the Packers.
And I get that Green Bay doesn't have the players that it once was. It's why I think they're highly overrated as a head coach opening, because the talent isn't there. And I'll probably talk more about that later, depending on how much I keep ranting. But the offensive line was faced with a defense that is not content to let you pick them apart. And because they can't generate pressure with their front seven, especially with Mike Daniels out and Kenny Clark out and Clay Matthews off of the older than he once was, he came with some really creative and aggressive blitzing, sending corners and linebackers and confusing looks and not letting you know where the pressure was, but the Bears picked it up every time. To the tune of the fact that the Packers throughout that game managed only 1 sack and 2 quarterback hits throughout the game. On the other hand, the Bears had 5 sacks, 9 hits on Aaron Rodgers.
Rodgers to throw on the run, and he's going to go down.
I mean, that's such an impressive number. If you put a quarterback who dropped back 42 times, you dropped him 14, you hit him. A lot's been made about his accuracy issues, and I've kind of been all over him for that all year, and this is another game where he completed less than 60% of his passes, and his yards per attempt was way down. But part of the reason he was missing is because he felt pressure that wasn't there. One of the things I wrote in my article was, you have to wonder after 10 years if the hits are starting to pile up on Aaron Rodgers. And it's something that happens with every quarterback. If you're David Carr and you're drafted by the Houston Texans, who draft a Division III football team to play offensive line in front of him, and you proceed to get sacked something like 70 times in your first 2 years, you've got no chance. Absolutely no chance of getting comfortable back there. Aaron Rodgers, in his 10-year career, is sacked on an average of about 7% of his dropbacks, which is nearly double what it was for Favre, and it's definitely double of what it's been for Tom Brady. So he gets hit more than anybody. Right now, the person I'd say that to compare him to, and you have to watch, and I'm going to watch with great pleasure, is Deshaun Watson just gets destroyed each week. But you're seeing this with Aaron Rodgers now, and so many of these throws, he's throwing early. He's throwing in anticipation of being hit. He's not throwing in anticipation of where the receiver is. This is why he's long. This is why he's short. This is why his accuracy is all over the place, because he's sensing pressure that isn't there. The difference was this week the pressure was there.
Rodgers is going to get a sack inside the 20. And it's Khalil Mack.
So you really have to give hats off to this defensive line and offensive line and the linebackers and tight ends. They did such a phenomenal job at controlling the line. And there are several plays that I love more than any other, but on that touchdown run from
Jordan Howard, that's going to be a Bears touchdown.
Trey Burton seals off Clay Matthews, which 5 years ago doesn't happen. And Jordan Howard runs a 9-yard touchdown run without even being touched. That doesn't happen in the NFL anymore. Right, because of how condensed things are, you really have to be good to make a touchdown run in there. He didn't get touched in a tight field where there are defensive backs and linebackers everywhere. And part of that is because Trey Burton flat out took Clay Matthews out. I may have shed a tear there. I was so happy. But it was such a great play. And plays like that just kind of keep showing how much we controlled the entire line of scrimmage. Now, the opposite of this is a point of concern, I would say, is that score should have been a lot more than 21 points. And I know there's been a lot of questions about Matt Nagy's play calling, and I'm going to warn you, this is going to be a Matt Nagy positive podcast here, but there's a lot of concerns about the 3rd and 2 Mizell RPO and the fake punt and the Wildcat with Tariq Cohen. And I'm going to tell you right now, I disagree with Mizell being on the field. I get it. But that was a first down if Mitch pulled the bat ball back and threw it to Trey Burton. Trey was open. He had at least another 10, 15 yards in front of him, I think, if I'm remembering the play right, that he could have gotten. And yes, Mizell, there was a place for the ball to be, but there were so many defenders. That's one that I think Mitch should have pulled back. And if you watch the tape, Matt's pulling him aside right away, and he's saying something to him. And I think he's saying, you missed a throw there. You got to read your cues, because there was a throw to Trey Burton to be had, and he missed it. But these little miscues, right? That play, the fake punt, which is really the only play I disagree with, or the Wildcat fumble. These are little plays that we are away that I think we easily get to 30 points against this Green Bay team. This is a game that was never really in doubt, although we just all felt it was in doubt. And so I'm going to go through a couple of high-level shout-outs for what I found the most impressive this week. And I'm going to end with the coaching staff, but I'm going to start with our defensive backs. You know, you look at the stats, and you see the numbers that Davante Adams put up, and you know, I know he's been saying for a while that he's the best receiver, at least in the NFC, and I am inclined to believe that, yeah, he really is. I mean, there are throws that and catches that he makes that he should just not be able to, that so well defended he shouldn't even be able to see the ball. You know, the one with Prince Amukamara all over that angle, covering all of his eyesight, and he still makes that catch. That's incredible. But we let him, he had his yards, and we made him work for it. We made him earn it. But the defensive backs, especially Sherrick McManus, on such a week of just taking over after really not being asked to play a tremendous amount of defense, what they did to confuse and switch routes and give a look right and pass things off, like they were passing off. Dan Orlovsky did a good one on one of the last sacks from Rodgers, in which, you know, like the safety and corners are handing things off. We're the most aggressive defense I've seen at just passing coverage off to take away short routes. That's the biggest change from week 1 to now, is that Vic really looked at what they ran and some of the concepts that they'd run, where they'd have, you know, 2 receivers on one side, and they kind of run these semi-pick plays. And the Bears were so good at diagnosing that this was going to be a pick play, and that meant that after their first initial response, when they got close together, that they switched. So you'll see, if you watch a lot of these routes where Packers have 2 guys close, they're going to basically run rub routes or pick routes and go. And you're going to see really quickly that each time that comes close to a collision, these guys are backing off and going with the other man. And it really made things difficult for Aaron Rodgers. That's some next level shit right there. And that takes extreme confidence in your defensive backs and your safeties to read, diagnose, and make these plays. And do so all at the same time, right? If these things go bad, all it takes is one man, one safety, your nickel, your corner, to misread and misdiagnose a play, and you've got 2 guys going with one and 1 guy wide open for a touchdown. And that didn't happen at all. That's next level. I mean, Kyle Fuller for sure deserved his Pro Bowl this year. Eddie Jackson, I think there's absolutely no question there. But, you know, Amos, to me, he doesn't show up in the stats a lot. He's not having the PFF fan year that he had last year, but his football intelligence has definitely improved since he got here, and he's making some of these handoffs, some of these reads, and this is a big moment for all of us. And I think if you look at what that means, I really got to go back and watch that Rams game again, because I think we're going to see a lot of those same concepts. Bears defensive backs aggressively switching on rub and pick and close by plays. That's awesome. Nobody else, I think, does that. I haven't seen any team kind of jump these routes and these concepts, and that gives you a lot of love for what Vic Fangio is doing back there, and it would be a travesty to lose him. But I do think we're safe, because if you look at this past year, Matt Patricia has really lost that locker room. Steve Wilkes, I think, is going to get fired. All the guys that are out there that are doing well are all offensive coaches, and they're younger, and I think that bodes very well for us keeping Vic Fangio. But in the same breath, I'm throwing that guy a ton of cash, and I know that there are some other of the local posts and podcasts talking about how we need to lose Vic and how he's bad. I just don't think they're seeing it, and that's fine. You know, everyone's got their own viewpoint, but from my eyes, my less than trained eyes, what I'm seeing is a defensive coordinator that's being extremely aggressive in some of these play calls, is making teams pay for double teaming Khalil Mack, which is no easy feat, and that's a thing of beauty. The second thing I want to talk to is Mitch, and I give him all the credit in the world for this comeback game that he had. We will go as far in this as he will let us, and this season has probably been a little bit more downs than ups than what I expected. And that's not to say he hasn't had a tremendous year. I am guilty of having probably too unrealistic of expectations for Mitch, and I'll be the first to admit that, and that's obviously somewhat accelerated by what Patrick Mahomes has done. A lot less for me, Deshaun Watson. I still, there's a lot in that game I can dissect, but to see what Patrick Mahomes has done is definitely, for me, as a fan, put more of a spotlight on Mitch. But what I love about him is his leadership is second to none. This team loves him. This team believes in him. You could tell that all these guys will go fight for him, fight with him.
Tariq Cohen with the catch toward the end zone, and touchdown Bears!
Like I said, I wasn't doing anything special. I just put in a spot, and the playmaker, Tariq, he did the special things after the catch and made a great catch. So it was a big play for us.
And after a week where his mechanics were god awful, like if you watch that Rams game, and I have to watch it again, I just have to do a tremendous amount of tequila ahead of time, is his mechanics were all over. It wasn't his shoulder, it was his lower body. This whole throw left thing that's up there, part of the reason he struggles with his left is when he kind of takes a natural step back and tries to swing to his left to make a throw, he gets his body balance off. He someone mentioned on Twitter, like it's like a swinging gait. Like he really oversteps to his left, and it throws off his center of balance, throws off his throwing motion, and that's why everything kind of sails. And the improvement that shows that the most is that throw to Trey Burton for the touchdown. Last week, that throw he misses. It's not getting intercepted, but that throw sails. That throw easily is an incompletion. And when you watch him, right, he takes a step, he sidesteps to the left. He had made that determination. He saw the coverage that he was looking for. He knew Trey was going to be the route. He knew he was going to be have a really good chance of being open. And I think, pausing here, that's a huge step in his development and what he's seeing in some of his pre-snap reads at the line. That's a throw that he probably doesn't make early in the season either. But when he makes that throw, he doesn't swing all the way open. He probably overswings just a bit, but that throw was pure money. And to go from week to week and fix that large flaw, but he fixed it in a week. He looked at the tape, he watched what he did, and he fixed that in a week. That's all you can ask for. We're going to go as far as Mitch wants us to, and Mitch takes us. And to see that, that's huge. And I think, he unfairly has gotten a lot of criticism for his running. One of the best things about him that I saw at North Carolina that's continued here is that when he's chased out of the pocket, and I could do a whole podcast on his pocket feel, right? Especially after that incredible play to Adam Shaheen I've probably watched 57 times. When he's pushed out of the pocket, his eyes are always downfield. He's always looking for the play. This isn't Josh Allen. This isn't these young guys whose first thing, or Lamar Jackson, whose first thing is like, oh shit, I just got to run. Running is his third option, right? His first is to stay in the pocket, make that throw. His second is to get clear of the rush and make that throw. Third is to get that yardage. And that's what you want in your quarterback. I don't know what Mitch is going to be, and that's probably what scares me the most. I can see a really good career. I could see a really middling career, right? And it'll always be in the shadow of what Pat Mahomes is doing. Pat Mahomes, this is an otherworldly season. But just because Pat may be the better physical specimen. He may have more tools. He might be the overall better quarterback. Doesn't mean that we drafted the right guy. Or the wrong guy, excuse me. When you look back, Drew Brees is a record-setting quarterback. He's won 1 Super Bowl. Everybody likes to talk about Aaron Rodgers, right? He's won 1, he's been in 2. You know, those guys have as many Super Bowl wins as Trent Dilfer or Brad Johnson, right? Being the best physical specimen of a quarterback doesn't mean anything in the NFL. What matters is leadership. It's so cliche, but it truly matters that if you have a quarterback that your teammate believe in and they want to play for, and is a guy who's a team-first guy, those are the guys that win Super Bowls. And yes, that's also a veiled shot at Aaron Rodgers. Mitch has to be consistent. And I know these 2 next games mean a little less, but he's got to consistently go out there and do that. He's got a tough test in San Francisco, right, against Richard Sherman. That's going to be a tough look for him. He's got to excel. When we go back to Minnesota, he's got to excel. Minnesota's probably going to be in a playoff hunt, and if you read my weekly observations article, they've got a better shot than most to make that seed. That means that they're most likely going to be the 6th seed, with Seattle having 2 games at home. Mitch has to be there. These 2 games have to be when he puts it together, because as Mitch goes, we go. Last but not least, and as you could tell, this pod is running a little longer than most because this is just such a momentous occasion. Matt Nagy does not get enough attention in the national spotlight for his play calling. Now, I'm going to go for a few minutes here talking about why I think he should be Coach of the Year, but I don't want him to win Coach of the Year because that position seems to be cursed. I think it's kind of like the SI cover curse, so please give it to Frank Reich. I wholeheartedly endorse his candidacy. But there's something I want to talk about that Dan Orlovsky did a little bit in his Twitter breakdown of the Jordan Howard run. I want to talk about the evolution of that play. So earlier when I talked about some of these the issues we've had in the run game, you heard me mention we do a lot with these jet sweeps. We do a lot of these stretch plays to really try to keep as many defenders out of the box, try to open the center of the box for Jordan Howard to give him some more run room. And early on in the season, especially against some more aggressive defenses, we saw us really deploy these jet sweeps. We saw them happen 2-3 times a game with either Taylor Gabriel, with Miller, with other folks out there. I think we've even faked it one time to Josh Bellamy, right? So this is a play that's been a staple in the beginning. We don't run it now at all. Maybe I'm struggling to remember, but that hasn't been something that we've called or had run for a while. But it's such a threat. And so when you go back and you look at that play, right, the fear, what they're doing now, and the way that they're drawing these things up is now he's taking the next evolution of that play. He's sending someone in motion. He is sending someone away to try to draw some attention that they have to respect. Even though we don't run it, it has to be there. Then he sends, right, he's culminated that with, we've run this shovel pass time and time again to Trey Burton. I think we even ran it in this game, right, where off of a jet sweep, we fake the handoff to Jordan Howard, and we give a shovel pass to Trey Burton, who's basically coming in. Sometimes he does it like he did in this touchdown play. He does a wham block, but otherwise, he's a guy that we hit for this little shovel pass, 5-6 yards. So now defenses are looking at this play and they're like, do I have to trust the motion? Is this going to be Trey Burton? Is this going to be another one of these little shovel passes? Or are they going to give this pass off or hand this directly off to Jordan Howard? Like Orlovsky says it's 2 plays in 1. It's 3. I mean, all season we've been running this play. We've added a second. We've added a third. We're kind of continually just evolving these calls. So teams are seeing these formations. They're seeing these concepts time and time again, right? They're getting comfortable. Like, okay, this is going to be a fake jet sweep. This is what's going to happen. And wham, different play. So I get being upset about some of these play calls, but what I don't think he gets enough credit for is just how evolved this offense has been with all new guys, right? New left guard, new right guard right now, new tight end, 3 new wideouts. This is not something that's easy. Everybody has this scheme and it's brand new. And this playbook, we're probably still not even through the prologue on. And Matt Nagy's already doing next level shit. Like, be afraid when the playoffs come if you're a defense, because you have no idea what's going to hit you. And what we've seen with the focus on the run game and how much better the run game has looked over the last couple of weeks, you can't take for granted that we're not going to run the ball. I think one of my favorite lines is always, the greatest trick the devil ever played. And I'll tell you right now, Nagy's playing a hell of a trick, because he's setting everybody up for one thing, and come playoff time, it's going to be something completely different. And if he unlocks fully Maserati Mitch, there's no chance that anybody else has against us in the playoffs, because nobody has a defense like us. We've seen this week after week of just how good this defense is, how aggressive, how much of takeaways that they can create. And one comment's always been, well, that offense, that Mitch, you never know. Look at that game against LA. It didn't look that great, right? Look at that game. Look at this game. If all he's done all season is built up to something in the playoffs that no one's ever seen before, I for sure won't be shocked. Well, I've taken up enough of your time for this evening. Thanks so much for listening. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at CarsKeys1. And you can read any of the stuff that I put up on the bar room. But looking forward to celebrating this playoff run. And let's see how far we go. Bear down.
Hey, Barflies, looking for $50 off on your next ticket purchase? All you have to do is send an email to marketing@tixblitz.com, TIXBLITZ.com. And if you are among the first to send an email to the marketing director at TixBlitz, he will give you a special promo code for $50 off on your next ticket purchase.